If I hadn't have had the ups and downs, had some incredible ups, 2 beautiful kids, a 21-year marriage, some downtimes, they all have paid real dividends to the drive and ambition I have to carry on making my life great.
I feel like doing a fucking air punch. Yes! Peak of the 90s, millions of people watching, and you're travelling the world. How was that period for you?
Going to stage school, it's obviously what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be, but you kind of don't actually believe you're ever going to be that in a weird way. There's such an element of gratefulness that you can't even begin to allow yourself to admit that maybe you're struggling a little bit with it. So much of my storytelling is through music. For the first time on this album, I didn't even question a lyric or a line. I thought, oh, could people read into that wrongly? Does that sound bad? Which has been my whole life. This is the first time that I've gone, you know what? That's how I felt.
Yeah,
so
this is the new era of Louise. I'm so here for it. Hello, Louise.
Hey.
I mean, the funny thing is, it's the second time I've seen you today. I interviewed you 10 minutes ago for the radio.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
No, this is different though, this one, right?
Different energy.
Different
we were talking about 90s nonsense and fun, but we'll cover some of that. But I think there's just so much I want to talk to you about today. I mean, first of all, obviously, you're out and about. You've got your new album out at the moment.
Yeah.
It's got some big dance energy on there. Is that where your head's at? Where are you at mentally?
Yeah, I wanted to make something upbeat. I always feel that if you're a woman and you write anything that's kind of really, melancholy or like just anything that's too laid back and slow, people kind of really read into everything. Yep. and as, why, when. But that wasn't really my main reason for doing it upbeat. I actually just wanted an album of bops. So lyrically, it's very deep. I'd say the deepest album I've ever written, actually, by a million miles. But I think sense-wise and beat-wise, it's definitely like much dancier than what I've ever done before.
There's a song on there called Manifesting?
Yes, yeah.
How do you feel about manifesting? What's your take on it?
Okay, so I think I'm quite a spiritual person as far as, I do believe in the universe and all of those things and putting things in your path and things happening for a reason. But it's really easy to lose sight of that when you're going either through a tough time or, I don't know, I'm not great at kind of meditating and things like that. I really need to make more time and space for that. I'm just not good at that kind of thing. Like, I'm more likely to go and jet spray the tiles outside.
That is meditating. I'm the same. I need to be doing a thing.
I'm better off if I'm doing something, cleaning the wardrobe out or just doing something. But manifesting, lyrically, it's quite cheeky. It's just about manifesting your ideal man in a club somewhere, but in a way of sort of what makes you tick, what it is about that person's energy that you like. So
the tricky thing I think with manifesting, and we've talked about it a fair bit on the podcast, because I love it. I think we've got an episode coming up shortly by someone called Estelle Bingham, and we go really heavy on into sort of how manifesting works, what it is and what it isn't. And I get tripped up quite often when things aren't going to plan with thinking, this is all my fault. I must be in such a negative headspace. I'm attracting all of this negative stuff in. And then you end up beating yourself up and feeling like shit. That surely can't be the point of it. So it's a tricky one, but I think a fascinating concept nonetheless.
I think I went through a stage of being thankful and manifesting in that way, like when you feel your chips are down a little bit and you're like, oh God, am I ever going to get out of this sort of like dark hole that I'm currently in? Rather than sort of wallowing in that, I just started thinking, right, I'm going to like just being really thankful for what I do have. So I would get up every morning, and I found this really difficult because mornings are my worst time.
They're my favourite. I'm obsessed. I hate the evenings.
Okay, so mornings for me is when the panic sets in. When you first open your eyes, you're like, is everything going to be all right? Whatever is going on in your life, whether you've got a record out, whether you're filming, whatever it is, the kids, is it going to be all right? So that first sort of 10 minutes of the morning, I'm like, can I cope with any of this? And then as the day goes on, I start going, okay. So I thought, right, rather than focusing on can I cope first thing in the morning, I'm going to be like, I am so lucky. And actually, I don't know if it was subconscious that I was coming on here today, and maybe I was just in a slightly different headspace. But I woke up this morning and was like, Do you know, I'm so grateful that I'm living in my house with my boys and I've got my dog at the bottom of the bed, and I just I'm just made an album I'm so proud of. I was coming here, I was like, okay, just focus on those things. I think in a weird way that's my manifesting, like trying to just keep on looking at the positives.
Yeah, it's no bad thing to do. I think it's a really healthy way to sort of help create that abundance, is sort of notice what, even when things are really shit, and we've all been through terribly shit things, finding those little glimmers or those base level things that you can be grateful for is so important. It seems like you're in a really interesting time in your life, and I think, you know, we are women of a certain age and we are experiencing life in new ways and taking hopefully learned experience with us to build our confidence or help us have more clarity about things. And it was really interesting. I read your autobiography before today, and there's some really interesting stuff in there about how previously, and I imagine this is sort of like 20s, 30s, you wanted to show, I'm this perfect wife with the perfect life and I need to show this and portray that version of myself. It definitely seems like you've lost that and you're not bothered about putting that out there or putting any image out there that isn't who you are, how you're feeling.
I think part of that came from the early days of the music industry where everything was so polished. We kind of touched on this earlier, where now to write an authentic song is the only chance you've got of having a hit. Something needs to come from within for people to grasp something about what you're saying. I think back then, as long as it was all shiny and polished, then that was your bigger chance of being, you know, charting, being out there, being everything everyone else wanted you to be. So I think part of that sort of being the perfect wife, the perfect mum thing actually just come from a roll on of that. And then sort of being in somebody else's media career as well, like obviously being married to a sportsman where everything then needs to look all shiny and perfect and new. And so I just think it's so easy to fall into putting the pressure on yourself to be perfect as you can be at all times. I do feel like we live in a different time now. I feel like people are so honest, which I love because it makes you feel better about yourself, and not in a way where you want to see other people have a bad time or go through similar stuff, but it just makes you feel more human and it makes you feel more accepted. And actually, whatever you're going through in life, when other people are talking about the same things, whether it's, you know, somebody you least expect it to come out and say, I suffer really bad with anxiety. Like, I'm like,
such a relief.
God. It's not just me, because I thought I'm such an anxious person. And people would often say to me, God, I don't see any of that in you. And I'm like, inside, I'm like peddling, like you wouldn't believe. And when you hear other people coming out and saying that, it just puts you into a headspace of, okay, this is normal.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I think otherwise you do look around and go, oh my God, what is wrong with me? Why am I the only person here not coping?
And I'm so lucky, right?
My kids are so lucky and I'm still feeling like shit. What's wrong with me? It's the worst. But I think you're so right. When other people come out and they story tell or they want to share a, you know, extract from their experience, you're like, oh my God, thank God other people are going through it. And actually, I think it takes you opening up often for even friends around you to go, oh my God, me too. I didn't know you were going through this. Because it's so, you have to get into quite a vulnerable space to admit this stuff and to feel safe doing it.
I think I've always touched on it in the last sort of the album before last, Heavy Love, which was sort of coming out of a bit of a bad time. I think I touched on trying to be open and honest, but then I think I sort of rewound a little bit and looked at every word and every lyric. The same with the book, and was so concerned of how it could be misunderstood, misrepresented in the press, or what people might think of it, or the judgment that might come from it, that I ended up kind of backpedaling a little bit and trying to change things. And I suppose so much of my storytelling is through music, and I think most probably for the first time on this album I didn't backpedal once. I didn't even question a lyric or a line. I thought, oh, could people read into that wrongly? Does that sound bad for this? And, you know, maybe I shouldn't say that, which has been my whole life. Like, that has been my whole life. Should I not have said that? Should I not have worn that? Should I not have behaved in that way? This is the first time, God knows what's going to happen, Fearne, that I've gone, you know what, that's how I felt.
Yeah,
so
this is the new era of Louise. I'm so here for it, because I think me and some of my teammates were just talking before you turned up about this notion of being the good girl.
Yeah.
And the pressure that we put on ourselves, that we have to make all of these decisions so that people view us as being good.
Yeah.
And actually, what does that boil down to when you reduce it down to its bare bones? It's good, I think, we equate to being compliant and
100%.
just going, this is what everybody else needs or wants me to do, and therefore I'm not going to rock the boat. And I mean, in the book you do touch on this, because you say people have historically described you as nice. I mean, I can clarify, I've met you a million times and you are the loveliest person, but actually, is that enough? Like, do you feel represented by simply being called nice?
I don't look at that as something like that makes me happy. I look at that and I think, actually, if you know me, I'm not an arsehole. Like, in our industry, I'm always polite to people. I don't believe you can be doing it for as long as we've done it if you're not a good person, if you're not easy to work with. There's always someone chomping at the bit to take your place. So am I a nice person to work with, am I a good mate? Am I there for you 100%? But the bits that I feel have always gone unnoticed is my ambition, my drive to keep on bettering myself and doing well, to get up every time the chips have been down. And believe you me, over the last few years, I have taken a full whack of abuse. But you know what? I could have just carried on, sort of been in the corner. And I was like, I'm just not going to stand for this. I am going to carry on doing what I love. And that might hit me in the face, I don't know, but I am going to keep on going and not, and be unapologetic for, actually, this is what I love to do and this is what I've spent 30 years doing. And I just want to carry on growing, whether that be as an artist, a mum, a woman, a partner, whatever that may be. I just want to keep on learning from everything, being a better person, and just enjoying it to the max as much as I can. Yeah.
I mean, you're so right, because it's no one human is one thing. And I think using the word nice is so reductive in terms of, like, look at all the complexities that make up this human and who they are, rather than, oh, she's nice, and that just being the passing comment, and not looking beneath at everything that's not only gotten you to where you're at, but also is driving you forward. And I think, again, reading, I didn't know so much about your earlier years, but that sort of resilience that seems completely embedded in who you are. And I'm sure a lot of that comes from your mum, who, I didn't know this until I read your book. She had you at 23. You were living in a mum and baby home for the first year of your life. That's not easy stuff. And I'm sure you can look back at your mum and your relationship as mum and daughter at that time and think, fucking hell, how did she get through all that?
I mean, first of all, I think the nice comment, I think I've played a part in that, because I always remember an interviewer saying to me once that when they interview me, I say so much but say nothing. So I think just so guarded, so kind of...
But that's protection, isn't it? You're protecting yourself.
I think I just give them what I feel they need to have, and I don't actually really let people in. I think I'm like that actually in life with people as well, with getting to know new people. It just takes me a while. But seeing my mum fought for everything, like single parent, really young, mother and baby home. I didn't know my dad. So those early years were purely about fighting for everything. Like, we had nothing, and I saw her always manage to do her best for me, whether it be my singing and dancing class. I mean, she took me to elocution lessons. What a
legend.
I lived in Lewisham, and she's taken me to the town hall to do elocution lessons, because she just said, I want you to grow up being able to converse and be confident in who you're talking to. So I owe her a great deal, actually. Like, I really do, because I think she could have so easily have just let me just ponder into anything. But it was really her selflessness of financially putting whatever she could have into me and kind of just giving me opportunities.
And it's so interesting how, almost by osmosis, you're picking up all of that stuff as a kid. Like, my mum doesn't give up. My mum always tries to look for a new path, or my mum will never take no for an answer. And she's not, I'm imagining, even saying this stuff to you, but it's just, you're seeing it. And then that becomes, that informs who you are as a person.
Whatever I needed, when I wanted to go to stage school. And by the time my mum then had met my stepdad, and they were like, there was just no way we could even afford to get you there, let alone pay for the fees. And I went for an ILA scholarship with a backing track from Gloria Gaynor, like, because I had no sheet music. I wasn't doing those type of lessons. I literally went up there with one pair of shoes and a backing track of I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, and remember sitting in the room thinking, oh, what am I doing here? Everyone had like their 3 pairs of point shoes and tap shoes and shiny jazz shoes, and I had trainers and a backing track. But you know what? There must have just been something that just carried on fighting. And that was her. She sat outside and waited for me. She got the money for the train fare to get up to the Barbican. She sent me in there and she's like, just go be yourself. And yeah, I mean, I was lucky to get the scholarship, and that changed my life.
Yeah.
If we're really honest, because if I hadn't have got into contes, I think it would have been really hard to have carried on singing and dancing the way I wanted to.
Yeah, it's so amazing to be able to look back and reflect on all of that now. Like, you know, when we're kids, we just see our parents, our carers as they're adults. You don't really give it much thought. And then I think when you have your own kids, you can look back and go, oh my God, how did they do it?
Yeah.
How did they do it? And where did that energy come from?
And with so little.
And with so little.
Like, I feel so fortunate between, you know, with the boys, between me and their dad. They have so many opportunities. And so much of it comes down to them working hard. And we both try and say this to them all the time. You will only get anywhere if you put the hard work in. Doesn't matter what your second name is, where you live, it's you have to deliver. And so I'm drumming home, you know, that to them all the time, because I don't want them to think that anything in life comes easy, because for me it never did.
No, but it stood you in such good stead, because you're still doing it and you're thriving.
Still going.
And but you're enjoying it, which is the main thing. You know, I think if you start to lose sight of why you're doing it, that's where it all starts to unfurl. And, you know, I just think when we look back to, you know, the good and bad in our childhoods, we can sort of see why we're in the exact position we're in now. It's so fascinating. I mean, how do you think not knowing your dad has impacted you negatively or in any sense?
Do you know what? I think I switched off from it really early. I think when my mum met my stepdad, I always remember the first time I called someone dad, and I walked out the door and I went, bye mum, bye dad, and like this kind of like feeling of like, I've just used the word dad. It's like the weirdest feeling. So I think from that moment on, I just cut off the fact I didn't know my dad. And he was my dad, and he's been my dad ever since. So I think in the early days, you know, it's when you're really young, it's not like you think about what a dad brings to the table. It's just that normality of mum and dad, you know, parents' evening, mum and dad are coming along. It's almost just a term. You know, my mum was enough for a mum and a dad, and I had amazing grandparents. But the minute I think my mum met my stepdad and they had 2 boys, I actually thought, you know, I'm happy with my lot. Like, actually, I don't need to think. It was only as I got older and had kids that I thought there is somebody out there that I could actually be walking down the street next to and I wouldn't know it was them. I went through that period in my life of like looking at people thinking, you know, like he could be anywhere, you know, or they...
And you've never had contact?
No.
Wow.
Never.
Yeah, I mean, I've got friends in a similar position who, you know, or they have actually found their parent they've never met and met them, and it's been underwhelming, and it's been a kind of a strange sense of, I thought I was going to feel something more.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's completely different every time, but it is. I'm you know, not surprised that you have that curiosity and that you went through that phase.
I had such a loyalty though to my mum and my dad, who he's my stepdad, but I call him my dad. My loyalty to them outweighed any loyalty towards getting to know somebody or looking for somebody that I don't know. Like, I knew, even though I think they would have allowed me and supported me to do whatever I wanted to do, I'm really good at putting myself in other people's shoes, and I know that would hurt me, even if you don't want to admit it. So I actually thought, I don't want to hurt them in any way, so therefore the hurt that they might get from me looking just wouldn't be worth what I know the outcome would be. So, you know, I sometimes think people make their choices in life and you have to allow them to live with that choice they've made.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, you went from being at your stage school and loving it and knowing that this is what you wanted to do, to quite quickly at 15 having this opportunity to turn into a recording artist and join Eternal.
Yeah.
When you look back on that era, and I started work around a similar age, and it is a strange thing to look back on, like how much of it has negatively impacted me, how much of it was just fun and thrilling, which is sort of the lasting memories I have. But when you look back at that time, and it was fast paced and you were thrust into popular culture, the peak of the 90s, where you've got all these huge TV shows with millions of people watching, and you're traveling the world constantly and touring with all these other big bands. How was that period for you?
Again, going to stage school, it's obviously what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be, but you kind of don't actually believe you're ever going to be that in a weird way. You just think, at best you might get in a musical theatre show
panto
somewhere or something like that. If I'm lucky, I might just, scrape some money together and be a dancer in panto or something. You don't expect that opportunity to come through the door, but you know what? I'm grateful every day of my life that it did. And I think the impact on it, it didn't happen as quick as I think it looks like it sort of happened, but I think the impact of such a vast, such a normal human being, all four of us were such normal human beings, being kind of propelled into this completely another world. I think it takes its toll mentally. But I also think there's such an element of gratefulness that you can't even begin to allow yourself to admit that maybe you're struggling a little bit with it, because you feel so ungrateful. There's kids out there that would love that opportunity. You're like, and I'm sitting here homesick, or I'm sat here wishing I was back at home doing normal things. So you keep a lid on those emotions. Well, I definitely did for a long time.
But what a head fuck, because actually, we're allowed to feel whatever we're feeling. And if something is hard, and I've done that to myself, thought you cannot not enjoy this, or you cannot feel bleak about this situation, because there are people out there that would absolutely kill for it. But if those feelings are there, they're there for a reason. And, you've described this homesickness where you just felt, you wouldn't eat, you would sit in a hotel room just thinking, I want to be back home. And all of that was a bit of a catalyst for you to actually leave the band. Yeah. And you were only 21 when you left. That's how strongly you felt about this.
I think loneliness was my biggest part, my biggest downfall in being in a band, which you don't expect to happen. We're all different people. We didn't, I was friends with Kelly at school, but it's very different from then being at school with somebody and hanging out, and then two people that you've just met and you've recorded together. Yeah, but it's very different back then as well. Like, we were lucky enough to be successful in so many countries, but I feel like now artists have so much more of a voice. I think back then you were so, you'd get picked up. I'd get a month's sheet of what I was doing every day, and there was never a room for me to ring up and say, actually that weekend I want to take off from work because it's my friend's 20th birthday and I really want to be there and enjoy it with I need that kind of normality that weekend, because you're in a band, so you can't manipulate the schedule because it's going to affect 3 other people that particular show might be good for. So your whole year pretty much is mapped out.
And it's literally every day we're talking.
We're talking every day.
I remember seeing bands around that era. And you'd see that you'd interview them, and then they're on something that night in Germany, and then the next night, and it's
Christmas
just relentless.
Day, New Year's Eve, your birthday.
There's no day off.
There wasn't a day off, and if there was a day off, you then was kind of like, I don't know what to do with myself now today, because you've kind of lost touch with your normal friends and your normal element of life, because you've just been sort of on this kind of bandwagon of doing everything. And I think the travelling part for me just got lonely. I think loneliness really set in, of feeling alone, maybe being in my head too much, thinking too much, and craving a sense of just people around me that gave me comfort. And it did finally take its toll, actually. We was in America. I think we were going to do the Jay Leno show or something like that. And I was really struggling to eat just because I was just so like that gut feeling of like anxiousness, and our management turned up and they were like, okay, you need to go home. I need to get you on a plane. Like, I looked unwell. And I felt for the girls because there's been so much stuff that's gone in, but for them, it must have been frustrating. Though I would have loved to have had more moral support as a band and for us to have hung out together, done more together, it must have also been frustrating for them to see this person just kind of like wilting at every bit of success. So I was like, again, I beat myself up about that, but I went home. They talked me into recording a tapestry album like with the girls, and I started it, and I just thought, no, this is just propelling me straight back there. And I left, and when I was in Brick Lane, went and bought a bagel and got a taxi home. And
bagel will fix a multitude of problems. Like, they are the best.
Tuna bagel.
But it's such a tricky decision to land on, even when that voice is getting louder and louder in your head, that you know this is not working and you know you've got to get out. And I think people can apply this to many different situations in their life. You know deep down what is right for you.
Yeah,
you're still saying goodbye to a massive opportunity, traveling, seeing the world, like, visible success, which everyone's so obsessed with. And were you terrified that you would just never do anything again at this point?
Completely terrified, but I think I'd reached such a low sort of point that wasn't even a thought. The relief of just not having that pressure, and I feel so guilty saying it because I was like living a dream from the outside.
I don't think you should feel guilty. I think we need to hear this shit because we all still assume that fame or that visible success is going to fix us, and it doesn't.
No.
It just doesn't.
And I love what I do. Like, anyone that knows me, that works with me, they know how much I love music. My happy place is completely on stage. It's when I don't think about anything other than what I am there to do. It's the only time that I have peace, which is crazy because I should be on stage thinking about everything, like what's coming next, what dance move, what the lyrics are. The only time I have complete peace in my brain is when I am on stage. That's when I don't think about anything else. The rest of the time, like, the goldfish are swimming in a million different directions. But I think when I left the band, the relief of not worrying about where I was the next day, how long I was going to be away for, like that gut feeling of, we would be in Southeast Asia and management or label will call and say, listen, you've got to go back to the States, Stays just charted or something, and we got a whole host of, we're going to do just another 5 weeks, that's all we're going to do. And another 5 weeks just to me sounded like a lifetime. Like, I was struggling. I needed to go home. I needed a hug from my mum. I just needed like something. And so I think when I left, I never once thought about doing a solo album. I never once thought about being a solo artist because I think people thought, and I've often read, that I was getting carved out for that. I mean, that was so far from the truth.
You just wanted to go home and eat bagels.
I really did. I wanted to hear like things like the Wimbledon sound tune, and like or the EastEnders, like just things that were so familiar that you felt safe.
But I think there's so many, and we've seen it throughout the sort of history of pop culture and pop music, that bands and artists aren't really looked after or asked, are you okay? Because it is seen as this sort of golden opportunity, and why wouldn't you just be grabbing it with both hands and going, yay, I've made it, this is all great. And then we see people slip down slopes where they're not doing well because they're not being asked, are you okay? Or do you even want to do this? And you feel, like you've said, ungrateful, or like this steam train's just going and you can't jump off. You're certainly not the first person to have felt like, I want some normalcy or at least balance. And I think when you're in a band like that, there is no balance because it's 24/7. I mean, when you've talked about this before. It wasn't like you were like, I'm going to go and do a solo career now. This all evolved and was an opportunity was given to you post leaving. Do you think you then managed to take back the reins a little bit? Did you have more autonomy as a solo artist?
I think just being, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was still that kind of same. You were sort of very much governed by the label and management and what opportunities, so you had to carry on doing that. So I did all the same things. I think the only difference part that was really instrumental for me enjoying it and coping a lot more with it was you could surround yourself with people that were your rocks. So you could have, you know, someone from your management team that you got on well with. Like I had a lady called Wendy that was kind of played that second mum role where she was there, she was honest, someone to have dinner with every night when you're away for 5-6 weeks at a time, sitting in your hotel room on your own. That's where the loneliness sets in. But all of a sudden, you've got 4 dancers that are coming everywhere with you, people that have become your friends, people that you can confide in. You can wake up in the morning and go, do you fancy going for a walk and a coffee? It's the simple things in life that I think I missed out on in the band. Like just having that, anyone up early, anyone fancy, you know, if you're in America somewhere and your time's all over, anyone want to watch a movie, or just having that company and people that you could just be yourself in front of. So being a solo artist, I could create that. I didn't have to ask permission to have someone with me, where in the band I couldn't just expect someone to rock up on the tour bus that no one else knew. So I got a bit more control back, definitely.
And then life changed all over again because you met your ex, Jamie, through Robbie Williams, which again, I didn't know. That's a great bit of the story. Robbie's like, meet this footballer guy. Oh, my new husband. But you talk about this time during your marriage where you were again seeking that sort of those home comforts and normalcy, and to be at home cooking and to have that married life. But actually, as much as you enjoyed that, your confidence in your work started to nosedive slightly. When did you notice that? Like, what were the points where you thought, oh my God, I'm losing that sense of confidence here?
I think having like my first son, it took us a long time to have Charlie. I had lots of fertility problems. So much of those first few years were about that I didn't even think about anything else. I think when I had my second son and I was sort of doing it all again, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I was so grateful to be having him, but you kind of noticed that my life had kind of, I think my music career and any sort of a career was such a distant future. You know, when you become like you feel so a million miles away from what you used to be that you could never ever dream of going back there, because in your mind for the first few years you tell yourself you're going to go back to that, it's all going to be fine, you're going to love having your kids and you're going to be at home and it's all going to be wonderful and perfect, and then you'll go back to being that person and you'll go back to having hit records and you'll go back to being super sexy and everything you was before. I think I started realizing that that's never coming back. I'm a million miles away from, I don't even think I would know what to do in a studio. I don't think I've sung for 4 years, like actually sung anything other than kids songs to the kids badly in the car. Like, would I even be able to, I used to think, I don't think I could sing a song from start to finish. Like that seemed like and this is someone that used to do a 2-hour show, like a full on at Wembley, to, God, could I sing a whole song ever again? So I think the panic set in when it felt like a million miles away from ever being able to do anything like that again. Do you feel like
you've got your confidence back fully, ever?
I don't think I'll ever get my confidence back to where I was when that day I walked into Italia Conti and sung I Will Survive Without a Care in the World. Like, just belief that I was great. Like, I really wasn't, but I believed I was. I don't know if I'll ever get that confidence back, but I have to say my confidence dips, goes up and down. I can have a really good time where I'm really powering through, and then I can have times where I question everything and I don't feel good enough, which I think is normal for a lot of people. I would love to say I think I'll be the confident human I used to be again, but I think it's going to take a lot of work to get there.
It's hard. It's really hard. I think there is something so amazing about that naivety that we have when we're younger, where we haven't had knocks in life and we don't feel beaten down by things. So we can bust into a room and be our true selves. And I think it's a strange paradoxical thing of, you know, maybe there are new layers of confidence that you feel when you get older, but equally there's bits that go, and it's just constantly moving and shifting, and it's very
especially
tricky.
I think in our industry, and I'm sure for a lot of women in a lot of industries, but I know for me in music, I might make a song that would be perfect on a number of radio stations, yet just pure to my age or where I'm at in my life, they wouldn't even get considered. But maybe if somebody else that was 25 was coming out with that, it might be a whole different ball game. So I think you're fighting.
Yes, because society doesn't view older women as having any value, which is a big problem.
I never thought, because I think we're lucky in the jobs we do that we have such a big voice and we can be heard if we choose to be. And so many women, the amount of messages I get, and they're so unheard. And I think we actually can be heard. But I feel like I've got bigger walls to break down now than ever before, and most probably do my best work, my most authentic I've ever been as an artist. But there's just another bunch of doors to kind of break down.
Yeah, it's doors forever.
Yeah.
But how wonderful that you are in that place where you can be so authentic because you've lived this full life already, and you've had, like you say, you've had knocks and you've had so many peaks and troughs and moments that have really floored you. I mean, again, one of the times that seems to have been the hardest for you was post-divorce.
Yes.
And dealing with the mental barrage of shit you were getting from other people and the outside noise. Where did that take you?
Oh, I think for me, the lowest pretty much a person could get to, like, just horrendous. I could never see a way out from how bad and how low I felt at the time. Like, if I didn't have my kids, I think I would have just given up. Like, I really do. I think I just knew that my kids were my everything and they needed me. But I can honestly say, you're going through something so personal in your own turmoil, in your own way. But then to get the barrage of judgment and nastiness, I'd never realised people could be so unkind and say such terrible things. It blew my mind. Whatever the situation, whatever the circumstance, the nastiness that would be said, I like, even now, and I think back, I can't even get the words out, because I just can't understand how anyone can be so unkind and cruel to another human. Like, I know it happens and I switch off from it, and it taught me a really big lesson, actually. And I live by this rule now. It's really easy when you're having a conversation with people. You're in a restaurant, you're having a drink with your mates, and you can get drawn into a conversation and you end up saying something nasty about someone to get a laugh, to get a giggle. I'm so aware of that now. I stop myself. I'm like, you know what? I know what it feels like to have people just firing off what they think, judgment, opinions, without, I'm sure a lot of them even realising what they were saying. So I'm so aware of my own behaviour with that now. But I was pretty much as low as I think a human could possibly get. Yeah.
Do you think a lot of that was to do with the fact that you were taking on all of that outside noise and actually believing it?
Yeah, I think I just felt really, like, I don't even want to use the word bullied, but I felt just so attacked in such a, like, nationally. I was going through a lot as it was. I was trying to be strong for my kids. Whatever had gone on in our life was private, which I do believe that you're entitled to, no matter what. And God, I was such a villain. And I was breaking, like, I was absolutely breaking beyond, like, what I thought it was possible for a human to break. And all along I'm still trying to be a mum, and it was just like every time I went out and I was trying to put a brave face on and do things like that was wrong if I didn't. I mean, I felt like everything I did was so wrong, and sort of like the years after that, it really took me a long time to build up a level of resilience. And I think even now I get really nervous of doing anything where I have to express myself, like doing this record and not re-looking at the lyrics, because I'm so worried of the attack that might come. So I have to really train myself to go, it doesn't matter, and it isn't the general point of view. It isn't what everyone actually thinks. It's a small minority. Because I would, like, read the comments and there'd be like 600 comments, and to me that would be like, 600 people have said these terrible things about me. And then my friends would be like, there's 52 million people in this world.
Yes.
Like, stop panicking.
Like, ridiculous.
But it felt like I was carrying the world on my shoulders. I wouldn't wish how I felt at that time in my life on anyone.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I've so been there, and it is the pits. And I think I probably learned a really similar lesson to you. I just shut out all of that outside noise now. I don't I'm not going to, or even if I do see it or I'm aware of it, I won't take it as personally. I think it's hard to say you won't take it personally at all because you're a human. And of course, anyone firing any arrows at you, it's ouch, you know. But I think it is a jolly good thing to get practiced at going, I hear that person,
hard, right?
What they're saying, they're in pain or whatever it is, but I'm not going to let that impact what I know to be true about myself or who I know I am as a person.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I mean, similarly to me, you were on antidepressants for a period of time. Did you feel they helped you kind of get your head above the ground?
Do you know what? I always remember like going to, I think it was the Brits or somewhere, and they made me put weight on. It was the lesser of two evils. For some reason, I put weight on. I was unconfident in how it looked to my body. Yet at the same time, I was trying to keep my head above water. I was trying to desperately just survive in the world that we live in. And I remember just like hating the pictures and hating everything about the way I looked. And again, a whole host of nastiness. And I just wanted to come out. And I feel like now we would have a platform to do this. I feel we've come such a long way. But a few, like 6-7 years ago, I wanted to come out and just go, actually, guys, I'm really struggling and I'm on some antidepressants and they've made me put a few pounds on. And I'm sorry I'm not perfect right now, but right now, like, my brain is slightly more important than my body.
And also, it's none of your fucking business what I look like. Fuck
but
off.
It just, again, it took me straight back to that, whatever you do.
Yeah, you can't win.
You're trying to find, and actually after that, I remember stupidly coming off them, never taken a tablet again after that. You know, like you're meant to wean yourself off, so don't try this at home, kids.
I did the same. I just stopped taking them. Yeah,
one day I got up and thought, no more.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this anymore. I need to... There's a song that I wrote actually, and the lyrics are, I need to put on my, get up, put on my best dress, got healthy and sober. And by that, I just meant one morning I just got up and went, I'm done. I am going to fight to enjoy the rest of my life in the best way I can. And I never took an antidepressant again after that. So, and I know they help some people. For me, they just wasn't right.
Yeah. No, I feel like it's quite similar. I had a period where it was an absolute necessity and then I just thought, right, enough's enough. And then I had to start digging deep and looking at all the stuff we've talked about, not listening to outside noise as much and building confidence back, which takes, for anyone listening who is in that place now, it takes ages, but it's not impossible. And it's so worth keeping your goal in sight of getting back out there and putting yourself back out there in whatever shape it is, whether it's with work or friendships or otherwise. It's so important to keep that in sight.
My mum said to me one morning when I was staying with her, and I used to sit on the same place in the sofa every morning. I used to get the kids to school, come back, sit on the end of her sofa, curled up into a ball, and just wait till it was time to go and pick the kids up. And she said to me, nothing ever stays the same forever, Louise. And no matter how bad you feel today, you will not feel like this forever. And I was like, yeah, you don't
You don't believe it, do you? But it's so true.
And she was right. And I look now and I think, God, anyone listening to this, for whatever reason you might be going through a tough time. And I blame no fault on anyone for my tough time. It was just circumstances with me and a life that I was in. You can really come out the other side. Like, am I swimming in confidence, walking down the street, thinking I'm the best thing since sliced bread? Absolutely not, a million miles away. Do I get up and go, I'm making a real go of this? There's a long way to go. But do I enjoy more of my life than not enjoy it? Absolutely, I do. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have great friends. I have a lovely partner. My kids are excelling at what they do. And I've just made music and I'm 50. So you know what? I'll take that. Yeah. I'll take that any day.
This is the energy. I love it. I'm so here for it. And nothing's perfect. You know, no single human is sat there going, I've nailed confidence. I've nailed self-worth. We're all bumbling along, trying our best and, you know, with varying degrees of success on any given minute, let alone day.
Yeah,
it's just
100%.
Constantly undulating and changing. And but I think we need to listen to your mum because it's so true. You know, nothing stays the same. And when you're in it, you feel like it's fixed forever, but nothing stays the same.
Time will always heal. You will come out the other side. And I think I am absolutely living proof of that. And I remember now and again friends ringing me up and going through a similar thing and saying, you were always so together. Like every time we saw you, every time we spoke to you, and you'd turn up to such and such's birthday party and you were so together. I was like, you have no idea how untogether I was. I was literally, paddling for my life underneath
We put masks on.
Yeah.
We put a mask on, we get out the door,
Yeah.
and we think, I'm not allowed to show any of this and feel any of it and suppress.
And that's what's so nice about the way the world is going. And please God, it carries on going that way in podcasts like this and other people having such a voice of it's okay to not be okay kind of voice. I do think that even if that had been going on 5 or 6 years ago in a bigger way, would have been good for me. Like I look now and I think, wow, like there's so many things you can tap into to look for some sort of kind of help, positivity, and it's so more important than that I would have ever given it credit for. If I hadn't have had the ups and downs, like some amazing ups, I mean, a 21-year marriage had some incredible ups, incredible times, 2 beautiful kids, some down times. They all have paid real dividends to, I suppose, the compassion and the empathy I have today for other people, but also the drive and ambition I have to carry on making my life great.
I feel like doing a fucking air punch. Yes! I'm so here for it. I usually always finish by saying, where's your happy place? But you've already said it's the stage.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. You're on stage, you're singing, you feel free.
Do you know what? The stage is my happy place, and not for the reasons I think, not for the adoration, not for the everyone looking at me space. That is, me, that isn't something I've craved. I've never been the craver of the fame and the limelight. I genuinely love what I do. It's all I know how to do. God, from the age of 10, I went to stage school and sung my heart out and danced my socks off at every opportunity given. But it's the one place I don't think about anything else. I don't beat myself up. I'm just peace. I mean, I just want complete peace in my mind. The more I learn, the more I go down the line, the more I know how important it is to find peace in your mind.
It is. It's everything. And we get little glimmers of it, and that's,
And
enough. And then it goes again. That's all quite normal. But look, it's been so lovely talking to you today.
Yeah,
and I
thank you,
just
you
love where you're at and where you're headed. And it's all very exciting. So thank you,
Fingers
Louise.
crossed. Thanks, man.